Pamphlet against Jerusalem by Robert Desnos. 1. The Jews have always presented the spectacle of self-flagellation. They are the ones who recount the nastiest stories about Israel. It is they who make fools of themselves, who accuse and condemn themselves. Little old man Drumont, you couldn't have done it. Perhaps I would then be able to express with greater freedom than them my admiration for the sacred character of their mission, and denounce, in writing which is not anti-Semitic, all the horror I feel for nascent nationalism and all the hope I place in them to defeat a certain desertion of the spirit. 2. If America had been discovered, in the sense in which the descendants of Columbus understand it, by Oriental navigators from the West, in other words from the Pacific, instead of by Westerners from across the Atlantic, we would probably not have to signal the danger run by the Spirit in the fact that Asia, the citadel of all hopes, is being attacked from west and east. The American continent would then have been an advanced fortress, impregnable to people with narrow minds from the Old World, as they call, speaking of this wasp's nest, Asia's wart, Europe. At the current time, the question of taking sides in the great quarrel of mind and matter admits no further indifference. From the foothills of Tibet, to the plump valleys of colored rivers, to the elephant plains and alligator swamps, from the Himalayas to the Coromandel coast, from Amudarya to Sakhalin, deep souls feel the storm, the Western epidemic, approaching like an ocean. Make no mistake, Japan has been contaminated, westernized. Russia, balanced between its two antagonistic fragments, has not affirmed its will in a spiritual direction. Everywhere else, everything holds back the danger, but for how long? The battle for Africa has been ardently engaged without a sound. Let no defections occur among the defenders of the knot of the universe, whose side one must take in the name of infinity and eternity. Among the Oriental races, the Jewish race seems to have received a special mission. Delegated among the enemies, consciously or not, they are not the servants of the primitive spirit. A strange race. The Christians adore one of its individuals, crucified by his compatriots. Mystics can speculate on the strange circumstances of the Passion on this poetic terrain, but it nevertheless remains that, without lyricism, however legitimate it might be, the Jews were introduced into Europe following Jesus. Once more, the Red Sea opened for a magnificent conquest, but the persecutors had a notion of the drowning to which they were predestined. On the ocean, the cradle of Moses encountered a powerful liner, and the air was full of supernatural storms on the point of breaking. What then is their role, these scouts for a future Tamerlane? What wind propels them, these new Spartans, after Leonidas's crucifixion, going from defense on to the attack? 3. Although they pretended to submit to the influence of the country in which they lived, the atmosphere was transformed whenever the Jews passed through. No doubt we do not see them leading revolts, proclaiming the truths necessary to the birth of revolutions, but in the crowd, look at those arched noses, the wavy hair, the velvet gazes. Emerging from the ghettos and peaceful shops, those one could believe intent solely on the pursuit of money revealed themselves to be the anonymous pillars of insurrection. They opened the doors of Freemasonry in the 18th century to uneasy minds. They left the first baker hung in La Place de Grève, stimulating popular ardor and leaving on their counters, gleaming with usury, the assay scales for weighing gold. The church of Saint-Merry saw them behind the famous barricade. The white plains of Siberia, the Russia Ispas, sheltered them, and their bombs. The last century saw destiny seize one of them and remind the French that they had to recognize themselves and find a place behind the two enemy banners of the country and freedom. Others, burdened with less evident need, left to their brothers the thankless need for an agent provocateur of the spirit. And these are the bankers, and these are the ministers still exaggerating the infamy of the enemy class which welcomes them. In their hands, gold seems endowed with a reptile life. The stock exchanges rock on their neoclassical foundations. The course of Rio Tinto and the petroleum wells become certain instruments of demoralization. Colorless emigrants insensible to the blows of fate, migratory birds from humid ports, usurers in black, Levites from Fez and Nizhny Novgorod, Baron de Rothschild, Mr. Dreyfus, whom others call Captain, a trader in vodka and smoked fish from the Rue des Rosiers. By different means, unknown to you perhaps, you pursue the same goal. You take part in the same cause. Lost children, cursed children. The Arab spits as you pass, and you are the rampart of Mecca. The Buddhist despises you, and you defend the Ganges. Lhasa is forbidden to you, and you are among the servants of the lamas, white ideas in a white sky. Yet it's a fable, these political and useful hatreds in the fair accomplishment of the task you are assigned. Whether it detests or defends you, the West is prey to the elevated thoughts your trail entails. You are an element of disorder among the enemies of the Orient. The passions against which several millennia of Mediterranean civilization have risen up are reborn, more profound and capable of impelling humans to extreme determinations. You are the most despised and sacrificed among the soldiers of Asia, the isolated African foot soldier at the mercy of pogroms and cowardly vengeances, and yet you have never weakened. Never has your activity been checked. And yet, born from the League of Nations, we see a sentimental movement pressed towards the resurrection of Zion and the foundation of a Jewish state as ridiculous and artificial as Poland. Then all these impure ones, all these mixed brains which might weaken Europe to Asia's benefit, would return to the sacred land, taking with them the worst sickness of the soul, the skepticism contracted during this 2,000-year expedition into enemy lands. The confusion which they carry where they go, they would take to the narrow valley of the Jordan, to the tragic banks of the Red Sea. This force will turn against what it has a mission to defend in becoming the advanced post of the Western nations and as dangerous as the English and French colonies. By subsidizing the Zionist expedition, the Rothschilds are going against the genius of the race. I am well aware that it's rare to see those who desert and leave to find the famous Wailing Wall, where imbecilic littérateurs have thought they saw the spirit of Israel returning to its cradle in the form of a few old men. Fortunately, there is no doubt about the failure of such an attempt. The Monaco Monte Carlo of the Levant has not yet opened its casino, and if the reactionaries have not yet pushed the wheel of the old biblical chariot, nothing in their attitude suggests displeasure or worry. Quite the contrary, this quasi-silence should be seen as a mark of joy. These fine politicians rub their hands. Perhaps their territory will be evacuated. But a current has been created. They must assume importance. The Israelites must remain in exile so long as the Western cause is not yet lost, as long as this Latin, Greek, Anglo-Saxon, and German mind, which is the most terrible threat to the spirit, has not been overwhelmed. From Paris to Rome, from London to New York, from Oxford to Hamburg, every day the sickness becomes more acute. The old sadist of Geneva claims to sequestrate the soul. The final freedoms are threatened. The right to opium, to alcohol, and to love. The right to abortion. The right of the individual to dispose of himself. This is what the sinister monks of the League of Nations are in the process of destroying. And it is at the very moment when the world needs its 30 sacred pieces of silver, which you hold on to while claiming to shun. The very idea of a possible retreat should feed your revolt against the feeble and cowardly among you. The day approaches, your day. This time it is a question of life or death for all that is worth being lived and defended. Judas's 30 coins were not given in vain. You retained them in order to buy rarer ones which are worth taking the trouble to save. Don't squander them by reclaiming sentimental lands. It is a treasure that all the gold in the world could not buy back for you.